Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what happens when you dominate in Tier 8 matchups in something like the M54 Renegade, which could potentially be the best premium tank in terms of learning the game and also earning you some credits. And of course, this is because this tank is fantastic both on the move. It has really great accuracy, it has a decent turret which can actually bounce. Of course, it does have this cupola here. It also has pretty weak side armor, to be honest with you, but it can be a kind of troll from the front. You can bounce a few on for your lower plate, but ultimately it's all about being able to consistently deal damage with this tank, and it's because of that factor that this tank can be so dominant, and you're about to witness how this tank can be dominant. Now then, in today's video we are of course watching Alex in this one, and he is going to be having a replay on, of course, Sand River, where he is the kind of the forward frontal force within this replay, and he's able to kind of just dish out damage continuously, but also against opponents that just don't quite know about the weak points of the Renegade here. And albeit, you know, they also have a decent level of players on the enemy team, but Alex here is going to be able to actually deal more damage than his entire team combined within this replay, which is why I think this is such a great one to showcase on the channel, because it shows you that you don't always have to have a team within World of Tanks, because he's able to deal such a massive amount of damage with barely to any kind of real assistance within this game, albeit he's had 500 assistance damage so far. He's pushed up into a fairly aggressive kind of area. However, the Chrysler K on the enemy team is thinking he's funny, and as doing that, he's also received a ton of damage, and that's exactly what we like to see. The Chrysler cannot expose himself too much, and when you've got the accuracy of the Renegade, you can pump shots into the M2Y. It's actually my chosen premium tank when I play World of Tanks is the Renegade, and that is because it really is one of those pinpoint accurate tanks that can be played so well if you set up your crew in the right way, if you kind of put your equipment as you should have in the tank, when you're using vertical stabilizers, when you've got coated optics in this tank actually to improve the view range of this, because this view range of the Renegade is fantastic, which is why he's been able to get some assistance damage within this replay. And also, even when you aren't going for assistance damage, being able to spot for yourself allows you to get more XP and also ultimately more silver in every replay or gameplay that you're actually playing within World of Tanks. And so that is why I think that this is so powerful as both a premium tank and actually playing it, because you don't have to rely on your teammates, and certainly this replay showcases that. Now, in this replay, he is of course pushing pretty aggressively. His team can't really support him. He's got a VKD that is kind of pushing up, albeit the VKD is a tank that can be a little bit difficult, but because of the skill level of Alex here, he's able to kind of push up and do the damage onto tanks that just don't really know about this one. Now, the T26E5 is kind of the American alternative to the Renegade, and that's because the tank is very similar in most regards. You know, the hull armor can be penned pretty easily. It has a similar sort of damage, albeit the T26E5 has slightly less alpha, but you've also got the ability to deal more damage. You've got a better turret in all intents and purposes because you don't get this massive cupola. Unfortunately for this Hotchkiss here, who decides he's going to come round, he is going to take some damage later on, but we'll talk about that later on. But anyway, in this replay, the key aspect of this tank is to try and get it hulled down, because when you're on a ridgeline using the gun depression, it can be very difficult for you to actually be able to hit that cupola. Now, one thing that you'll notice about this tank is that it gets gun depression as well, which is why he's able to crest ridgelines and play it as kind of the Ridgeline Warrior on the southwestern side of the map on Sand River. Now, it's very difficult for the opponents to really do much against him, because yes, they can hit this cupola on top, but they've got to get pretty lucky. However, because of the penetration of the premium rounds on this tank, 255mm, he doesn't really need to do all too much to be able to bounce one. And especially when things like the Scorpion G are just trying to kind of poke out and shoot when they're definitely not fully aimed, yeah, trying to hit this cupola is going to be super difficult. Now, one thing that you'll note from this side of the map on Sand River is that you can get shots into the enemy's base base if you were in that position. But the first thing that he needs to do is get rid of this Charioteer, the Scorpion G, and also the Leo that are sat on top of this area. Now the Scorpion G keeps poking and trying to do damage. However, he does decide now that he is actually going to try and actually aim the shot, but it doesn't matter anyway because he misses completely, and that is exactly what you like in the Renegade. Now, for those of you who have been paying attention to the bottom left-hand side, you can see that he's picked up 6,040 damage already, 1,600 assistance as well. So that's what, a total combined damage of nearly 8,000 already within this replay. In fact, it is 8,000 now with that final shot on the Scorpion G, and that is why I think, for the most part, many players actually really want to get the Renegade. It's not because it's innately overpowered in one regard, you know, when you look at things that have like an insane autoloader. This thing is just the all-round nicest premium to play in pretty much every game. I don't feel like I'm significantly disadvantaged with this tank when I play in pretty much any of the kind of maps on the game, so you don't really have to worry too much about getting a terrible map for your tank. Yes, there are some, but not really in most regards. And often you can actually play this tank in a more medium tank sense, where you're kind of poking against opponents, where you're being a little bit more kind of harassy to the opponents. I don't even know that that's a word, but yeah, trying to just harass the opponents continuously is what the Renegade really does well. And albeit, yes, you will take damage in return because of the armor model of this thing not being the best, you can make up for that with the DPM and also the accuracy of the tank to kind of overcome the actual armor model, and still, you can still bounce rounds in this thing, hence why he's been able to bounce 2,500 damage within this replay so far. Now, one thing that you should note is that when you are kind of coming up against tanks like the Tiger P, when you're top tier coming up against tier 7s, this thing is amazing. This thing becomes a tank that actually has a little bit of armor. You know, you still can be in a bit of a difficult scenario. However, the Hotchkiss here that we saw at the beginning of the game that tried to YOLO gets away with it once again. Now, the Panther M10 is a tank that needs to be kind of not really underestimated. Now, the Panther M10 decides he's going to YOLO, and I guess it's not necessarily the worst play that he could have done, but he definitely needed to skewer the first couple of hits on him to make sure that he didn't fail his way. Now, he does get taken out here, but one thing that we can kind of showcase within this replay is that even though he got taken out, he played the Renegade super aggressively and was able to actually push forward the damage as and when he needed to progress the flank, to be able to get into their base, to spot the opponents, to be able to get assistance damage and bring his grand total over 10,000 combined in a tier 8. Yes, a tier 8 getting 10k combined is a result that you won't see in most tier 8s in the game. Certainly not premiums. Well, most of them are premium that do achieve this, but that's probably because they get played more. But yeah, a fantastic round of World of Tanks. And of course, let's check out the post-game results. Now, here we are on the post-battle results screen. It did actually end up being a victory for Alex's back here. And this was a victory that was very well deserved. He picks up the Mastery Badge, Confederate, High Caliber, of course, for just basically demolishing the entire enemy team and doing more damage than his entire team combined. Yes, you can sit there with your calculator calculating all of this up. He did more damage, and that is why he was able to pick up 2,312 base experience. He managed to get 1,473 assistance, 8,999 damage done. And not quite 9,000, but as close as you're ever going to get. And of course, having blocked 2,900 damage by the armor, you can see exactly why the Renegade is so good. And one thing that I really want to note is that actually this tank can earn you an amazing amount of silver, and hence why he was able to earn 320,000 silver, albeit he did spend 145,000 on premium ammunition. Yeah, a little bit painful there, but he still made 163,000 with battle payments and everything else included, premium time, etc. But an amazing round of World of Tanks nonetheless, even with firing just premium ammo. But hopefully you did enjoy this, and of course if you want to check out other gameplay and actual tank reviews, then make sure to check out the ones on screen right here, where we're actually looking at 2 amazing replays. Definitely check them out, I would recommend them, and of course I hope that you join me in one of those. Goodbye.